Hey guys, Tiffany Ophelia Porter here. I was a professional athlete for 12 years, athlete my whole life essentially. I recently retired in 2021 and I want to help people transition out of sports or into retirement, into that next phase of life without feeling so overwhelmed and so anxious. So here are 20 things that they don't tell you about sports retirement, and I'm sure you'll find it helpful. Let's jump straight into it. Number one, nothing can replace the thrill of competing. Nothing, nada, zilch. Don't even try. Just accept it and move on. Now, I'm not saying that other things can't bring you incredible joy, but there's just something that comes along with the thrill of competition when you're an athlete that just can't be replaced. And I think if you go into retirement understanding that, it will help relieve any expectations or just help with that transition. Number two, the fast money aspect of sport. Now, let me explain, because when you're an athlete, it doesn't feel like fast money because you are committing your days, hours, and essentially your whole life to this craft. So you're putting the work in. But what I mean by fast money is the idea that you're going to go and make $10,000 from a 12-second race. That's just not the reality for the majority of the world. When you're in the corporate world or in healthcare, like I am as well, you'll learn that, you have to get a bi-weekly check or a monthly check or a weekly check or however that goes. And it doesn't happen as quick. Just kind of normalizing some of the things that we did when we were athletes, I think can kind of set you up to think that that's just how it is for the rest of the world. And that's not always the case. Accept it and just move on. Number three, it might be a little bit difficult to remain regimented and committed to working out. Okay, now this is somebody who was an athlete their whole life. I enjoyed working out. It was literally built into my daily schedule as an athlete. But when you're not, and when you retire, you have to actually make time for it. And if you're not intentional, you can look up 6, 7 months later and realize you haven't done a proper workout. We're not going to talk about who that happened to. So just knowing that you have to really make the time to work out and to prioritize fitness is definitely a thing that you have to consider when in retirement. Number four, your visibility or your platform might naturally decrease when you're no longer an athlete and you're running in front of an arena of 10,000 people, and you go to the greatest competitions on earth and people just naturally kind of want to know more about you as the athlete. So when you step out of that arena and you're no longer the Tiffany, the athlete, the Olympian, the world medalist, or whatever the case may be, it might be a bit of an adjustment to know that, okay, your platform might have shifted, but I want to say that doesn't mean that your ability to make an impact on other people diminishes. You are able to still impact those around you, even if your sphere of influence decreases. Just understand that that comes with the territory of retirement a lot of times. Number five, you might appreciate your sporting accomplishments much more in retirement. Let me explain. When you're an athlete, you're surrounded by other athletes, many of them doing incredible things and achieving great success within their craft. And sometimes your perception gets skewed and you just think, oh yeah, everybody's athletes, everybody's getting world medals, everybody's breaking all these records. And then when you step away from it, you realize just how remarkable it is to actually be an elite athlete and to have the privilege of being a professional athlete. So you definitely appreciate what that looks like kind of more once you step away from it and you're like, oh, it was pretty cool to be the 1% of the 1%. So appreciate it while you're an athlete and know that you're going to probably appreciate it even a little bit more when you're no longer actively competing. Number six, this might sound contradictory, but when you retire, you'll realize just how big of a deal sports is, but yet how little of a deal it is at the same time. Let me elaborate. So when you're competing, you're wrapped up in it and you realize that it brings people joy. Sport has the ability to unite people, entertain people, and just it's such a great equalizer. Sports really is incredible and I loved it, and I will encourage anybody that wants to get involved to get involved, period. However, when you step away from sport and you start to experience things like, say, parenthood, relationships, marriage, working, and just so many other aspects of life, you realize that in the grand scheme of things, yes, it's important, but it's not life or death. That race that you lost or that competition that you felt like you wasted an opportunity, yes, in the moment it might sting, but once you retire, you'll realize there's so much more to life than sport. And that's a good thing, so keep in mind. Number seven, It actually might be a little bit difficult for people to see you as more than an athlete, even in retirement. Now, this is something that kind of shocked me a little bit because, as far as I was concerned, yeah, when I stepped away from the track and I was no longer actively competing, it was a part of my identity that I was very proud of. Don't get me wrong, it opened amazing doors. I'm not even complaining about it. However, even in retirement, you'll see that people still sometimes struggle to see you as more than an athlete. It's one of those things where you might have things that you're very passionate about outside of sport. Like for me, I love being a pharmacist, a mother, a wife, a sister, a Christian, so many other things. But a lot of times when people meet me, they're a little bit more drawn to the fact that I was a 3-time Olympian or world medalist or British record holder or whatever the case may be. And look, I love it. Sports is amazing. I'm not complaining, but I think when I transitioned out of it, I did find it very interesting that people still sometimes look at you as the athlete, even in retirement. Number 8, and this is actually one of the reasons why I am creating this video, because I think this can be very useful for people when they're athletes and kind of when they're transitioning out. You might struggle with finding your new identity. Sometimes when you're an athlete, you dedicate so much of your life and your energy and your blood, sweat, and tears to perfecting your craft that you sometimes don't even know who you are outside of sport. So when you step away from it, whether it's just, voluntary retirement or retirement via injury, whatever the case may be, you might find yourself having to reevaluate and think, who am I outside of the sport that I did? So that is something to keep in mind. I would encourage people to find what their passions are even while they're competing and be very diligent in figuring that out, just as diligent as you are as when you are competing, because it's really important. And truthfully, a lot of people struggle with this new identity crisis, whether they're an athlete for 1 year, 20 years, or anything in between. So just know that it's probably very likely that you might have to kind of reevaluate, who are you outside of sport. Number 9, you will miss your sport immensely. Some days will be a little bit worse than others, but it's inevitable. I mean, you committed so many years, so many hours, so much of your life to being the best athlete that you can be. And stepping away from that, sometimes you'll just sit there and think, yo, did I make the right decision? Did I retire early? Should I make a comeback out of retirement? And all the questions that come along with that. I tend to find I have these thoughts around the championship part of the season the most, because that was my favorite part of being an athlete. Practice was cool, but I lived on competitions. So, yes, we all go through it, but I just kind of want to challenge you to accept that this longing or this missing of the sport was just a testament that you actually loved what you did and not the sole, I guess, motivator for you to come out of retirement or to think that you made the wrong decision. Everybody goes through it. It comes with the territory of retirement. Number 10, kind of piggybacking off of number 9, there will be days when you want to come out of retirement. It literally, like I told you, like clockwork, as soon as the championship part comes on, and I see these girls out here, and guys, because I get inspired by both, killing it and just, being so incredible on the track, you just think, oh man, what would a training look like? How can I fit getting back out there into my current regimen of life? And then as soon as you go to sleep, at least for me, and I woke up the next day, I snapped out of it and I was like, girl, bye. All good things must come to an end, and that includes sport. Every athlete has to retire. So my advice would be to just do the best that you can when you can. And when the time comes to hang up your spikes or to close that chapter in your life, just know that it should be met with enthusiasm and excitement and not nervousness and not a sense of dread, because it's inevitable and everybody goes through it. You're in good company. Number 11, you may find yourself envying the lifestyle of the current athletes. Now, if you're someone like me, I had a very fulfilling career. I feel like I left no stone unturned. I'm very pleased with the body of work I was able to put together as an athlete. However, human nature, sometimes you just look back and think like, dang, I miss traveling first class, or I miss staying in the nicest hotels, or I miss that adrenaline rush of competing, or just everything that comes along with being an athlete. And like I said before, you're in good company. Everybody must step away from the track or from their sport at one point. And just know that It's okay to have those feelings. Obviously, keep them in check. But with that, just know that it's okay to just sometimes reminisce on all of the positive memories that you made when you were competing. Number 12, you might pause or give somebody the side eye when they refer to you as a former athlete. Because as far as a lot of us are concerned, once an athlete, always an athlete. And although that sentiment is true, you have to keep in mind that everything, like I said before, all good things must come to an end. And being referred to as a former athlete is not a bad thing. You are, in fact, a former athlete. You're no longer competing. Even if you have that competitive nature that doesn't quite leave you in retirement, it's okay. However, I do want to point out, as an aside, saying former Olympian is actually a misnomer, because if you think about it, being an Olympian is a title that you earn, similar to like a PhD. So once an Olympian, always an Olympian. You earn it and no one can take that away from you. Number 13, the competitive juices do not just stop flowing once you retire. Now, it's funny because I am a naturally very competitive person. And one of the biggest adjustments for me in retirement was trying to find something to replace that thrill of competing. And like I said in point number 1, you can't. So I had to accept that. That was a harsh reality. However, I definitely do find little things to help me kind of quell that competitive desire. My husband and I might compete on who can do the most push-ups. I might compete against myself on how many miles I can walk in an hour, or how many dishes I can wash in 10 minutes, or whatever the case may be. Having those friendly competitions, even if it doesn't quite compare to when you were an athlete, can help maintain that air of competitiveness. It definitely does not stop flowing once you retire. So just know that. Number 14, you will not enjoy consuming sport as much as you did competing in it. Now, don't get me wrong. Most people, by the time they become a professional athlete or a college athlete or high school athlete, or just an athlete in general, I mean, it's kind of natural to be a fan of that sport. So I'm not saying that you won't enjoy watching competitions or going to sporting events, but come on, there is a completely different vibe between sitting behind the TV watching an athlete compete and actually being in there and being the athlete competing. So I think just understanding that and going into retirement knowing that being a spectator and being a participant are wildly different will definitely help with that transition. Number 15, and baby, this is one that I am literally going through right now, is that you're going to have to work a little bit harder than before to keep the weight off or to stay at a healthy weight for you. Now, for me, I just had a baby. Well, not just, he's 6 months, but it feels like just. So sometimes as athletes, we forget that non-athletes have to actually schedule working out into their daily routine versus when you're an athlete, it's literally part of your day-to-day activities. So yes, being able to say, okay, I'm going to dedicate my lunch hour at work or this 2 hour period per day or per every other day, or however you find it fits into your schedule, you have to actually be very intentional about working out. And baby, keeping the weight off is a little bit harder. 1, you're not competing at a high level. 2, you have to be intentional. And 3, a lot of times you're getting a little bit older. And then don't throw kids in the mix, y'all. It's been a struggle, but my postpartum journey has been very special and I'm grateful. Just know your girl is trying to get back to her pre-pregnancy weight. Number 16, you will appreciate the relationships that you built through sport even more than before. Sport has a really unique way of bringing people from all walks of life together. You might be forced to interact with people that you may never have, and other than because you're an athlete. And with that, you build some incredible relationships heading into retirement. Some of my best friends were my college teammates. Some of my closest girlfriends now are my professional colleagues. And I met my husband through sport. Literally, we met each other at 17. I'm 36. 19 years later, he's still the homeboy. You know what I mean? So sport really does help you build relationships. And just that's an aspect of it that I think you'll appreciate once you hang up the spikes and you're in a new chapter of life. Number 17, and hear me out. Your budgeting or your financial planning skills will be put to the test in retirement. So a lot of athletes, when they're paid well, they sometimes can get caught up in that lavish lifestyle. And, if you're not very diligent about planning your money and budgeting and just being fiscally responsible when you are an athlete, it's going to be a challenge in retirement, especially if your level of earning decreases or shifts or, just changes in any way. It's one of those things where you're going to kind of be put on blast, if you will, if you're not very intentional about being good with your money. So I've been one of those people who always preaches the whole idea of act your wage when you're competing, and even more so in retirement. So definitely keep that in mind, that heading into that next chapter in your life, those budgeting skills will be put to the test. So be ready. Number 18, you will feel better equipped to handle life's disappointments. No matter how good of an athlete you were, every single one experienced disappointment. And the skill of overcoming obstacles or dealing with those disappointments and growing from them and learning from them and becoming better truly is a talent. And because of what you've kind of perfected while you were an athlete, in overcoming those setbacks will really help set you up for retirement. So when you have a project that maybe flopped at work, or you have to deal with a kid being sick, or whatever disappointments or obstacles you might face in your day-to-day in retirement, you'll be like, listen, I've done this before, and you'll have the confidence to be able to handle those disappointments in retirement because of what you experienced as an athlete. Number 19, the people who genuinely love you will stick around, and they'll still be in your corner in retirement. I know a lot of people kind of go into retirement feeling a little bit anxious or like scared, because you might think, oh, the people that loved me before are not going to love me anymore, or I might not have the same level of access, or just whatever it is. Just know that people who rocked with you when you were an athlete and who are truly there for you because of who you are will be there well into retirement. Like I mentioned before, building those relationships is so important. So when you have those people that you've met throughout the years in your corner, they're going to rock with you in retirement. So rest assured, and don't let that be anything that brings you anxiety. Last but not least, number 20, you can be sad yet excited about retirement simultaneously. Sometimes people think that emotions are not a spectrum, but they are. You can be sad about, closing one chapter of your life and, be met with like fear or apprehension or, sadness or some of those negative emotions, but yet be excited for the next chapter at the same time. And that's okay. That's kind of where I am right now. I am so excited to, be in this new phase of life. I'm loving being a mom of two, being a wife, being a pharmacist, a real estate investor. I'll do another separate video kind of more about me, because I am a woman that wears many hats. But I do think it's just important to know that you can be many things at once. Just because you might be sad about walking away from one thing does not mean that you can't be excited about opening up a new chapter. Sometimes that can be lost on people, but just keep in mind, it is okay. Having all those complex emotions kind of comes with the territory. You committed so much of your time to being an athlete. It's inevitable for you to have a lot of emotions when you step away from it. It's okay. You're in good company, like I said before, and you're not alone. So that's it. 20 things that they don't tell you about sports retirement. As the old adage says, every dog has his day. It's the reality of sport. You're going to have to walk away from it eventually, whether you're kind of forced out before you were ready, or if you walk away so excited the way that I did. Retirement is inevitable. And I just really want to encourage athletes to not meet retirement with trepidation or fear or anxiety, but with excitement from the preparation that's been put in to get you to that point. You're going to do great. If my life is any proof, retirement is amazing. It's what you make of it. I want to encourage athletes to embrace change, lean into the unknown, and just have the confidence to know that retirement will be amazing. You've got this. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. I will be sharing much more tips like this, as well as just what life after sport looks like. If you are interested in videos like this, make sure you tune into my upcoming videos, subscribe to the channel, and come join the fam. Peace, and thanks for watching.